Okay, class, welcome to the language of medicine. We're going to do chapter 10, the nervous system. So a lot of good information. Again, don't get overwhelmed. It is just medical terminology. I won't ask you on the real specifics of the nervous system, but it is, I love the nervous system, just like the muscular system, the respiratory system, the cardiovascular system. A lot of good information. Let's look at the chapter goals. Name, locate, and describe major organs of the nervous system and their functions. Learn nervous system combining forms and use them with suffixes and prefixes. Define pathological conditions affecting the nervous system. Describe nervous system related lab tests, clinical procedures, and abbreviations. Apply your new knowledge to understanding medical terms. So again, the nervous system, complex, 10 billion nerve cells, allows for voluntary and involuntary functions. It carries electrical messages, and it has external and internal receptors. The nerve cells are called neurons. They're very microscopic. They're collected into macroscopic nerves. They carry electrical messages all over the body. So internal and external stimuli activate the cell membranes to release stored electrical energy called the nervous impulse. External and internal receptors receive and transmit these impulses to the brain and spinal cord, which is collectively called the central nervous system. The central nervous system then recognizes, interprets, and relays impulses to other nerve cells that extend through parts of the body such as the muscles, the glands, and the organs. So here's a good breakdown of the two major divisions. You have the central nervous system, which is your brain and your spinal cord. Then you have the peripheral nervous system, which is your cranial nerves, your spinal nerves, your plexes, such as the brachial plexus, and then peripheral nerves throughout the body, like L1, L2, L3, L4. So the cranial nerves carry electrical impulses between the brain and the head and the neck. Spinal nerves carry impulses between the spinal cord and the chest, abdomen, and your arms and legs. Cranial and spinal nerves, sensory nerves carry messages toward the brain, then motor nerves carry messages from the brain. And some of them have a mixed nerves carrying both sensory and motor nerves. Now, I'm sure you've heard of fight or flight or rest or digest, and you've also heard of the autonomic nervous system. So the autonomic nervous system carries impulses from the central nervous system to your organs. Sympathetic, which is your fight or flight, nerves stimulate the body under stress. So if you see a bear, you're going to either fight that bear or you're going to run away from that bear. Parasympathetic nerves balance the sympathetic system. So what do? They slow down the heart rate. They lower your blood sugar. So that's called the rest and digest system, right? Because after you eat, you want to rest, you want to digest your food. If you're being chased by a bear, you're not really thinking of being digestion or resting. Okay, so that's the difference. So when you see a bear, think, okay, what are you going to get? You're going to get dilated pupils, you're going to get a rapid heart rate, right? But you don't have time to pee and poop. So parasympathetic is when you pee and poop. So the autonomic nervous system contains a large number of nerves that function automatically. It controls the heart, the blood vessels, the glands, involuntary muscles like the intestines, and hollow organs such as the stomach and urinary bladder. So sometimes, whether it's athletes or some people, they're always in a sympathetic state. They just can't rest and digest. They can't slow their heart rate down. They can't lower their blood pressure. They're always what we call it type 1, and they're just uptight, and it's very difficult. A lot of anxiety, very difficult. Probably when you guys take the exams, your sympathetic system's on fire, right? Your pupils dilate, your heart rate, you're like, oh man. So that's involuntary, right? Your body responds. So our goal is to tell the sympathetic system to say, hey buddy, chill, it's okay, it's only a test, don't worry. And tell the parasympathetic system to say, slow down. Right? So here's a good review. Central nervous system, brain, spinal cord. The peripheral nervous system, 12 pairs of cranial nerves, 31 pairs of spinal nerves. Then you have autonomic nerves that break down into the parasympathetic and sympathetic. So this is a good review for you right there. A neuron is an individual nerve cell. It has dendrites, it has a cell nucleus, it has an axon, which is a myelin sheet, it has a neurolemma. Terminal end fibers secrete neurotransmitters, and neurotransmitters transfer impulses across a synapse. So that's how nerves communicate. And there's lots of neurotransmitters in the body. The most famous one that you probably know is dopamine, right? So there's acetylcholine, epinephrine, norepinephrine. There's tons of them. You don't, again, it's not an anatomy or physiology class, so you won't have to memorize the neurotransmitters. But perfect example, so that you understand the concept, is let's say you're on your cell phone, you get a text, and somebody says, "Hey, how's it going?" Or you're on Facebook, Instagram, and you get a like. Well, your body gets a sudden hit of dopamine, and dopamine is a neurotransmitter that gives you pleasure, gives you satisfaction. Okay, so what happens is the more dopamine you get, the happier you feel. So the more likes you get, the more text you get that artificial feeling of, oh, I feel good. Then what happens is you crave more likes, you crave more texts, and so your body relies on that self-assurance from text and likes for you to feel good. Now, recreational drugs work the same way. Molly's, they work very well, and then they secrete serotonin and dopamine, and people really rely on them. And when they go to raves, they start popping a Molly, and they get the artificial dopamine and serotonin. But then they rely on it just to get that same natural high, so you have to be careful. And then ganglia are small clusters of nerve cell bodies. Anatomical parts of a neuron contain dendrites, cell body, cell nucleus, the axon, myelin sheet, terminal end fibers, and the synapse. So if you look right here, the image shows the parts of the neuron. Here's the dendrites. You get the stimulus at the dendrites. Here's the cell body, cell nucleus. Here's where the nerve impulse will come. And neurotransmitters translate from one to another. So here's the neurotransmitter, here's the receptor. So you release dopamine, you release acetylcholine, you release norepinephrine here, and then the receptors will say, okay, what do I need to do? Do I need to speed up, slow down? What do I need to do? And then, so if you look at the terminal end fibers, then they connect to another nerve, and same thing, on, and it just goes throughout the body. Glial cells contain the health of the nervous system. They do not transport impulses, but they go through mitosis, whereas neurons, nerve cells, so neurons don't go through mitosis. So you don't get cancer of neurons or nerve cells, but you can get cancer of glial cells. So glioblastoma would be cancer of the glial cells. There's 4 types of glial cells. Okay, there's astrocytes, which are astroglial cells. There's microglial. Cells. Oligodendroglia, which is oligodendroglial cells, and ependymal cells. These are supportive, protective, and connective cells of the central nervous system. All right, let's take a brief tour of the brain. The anatomical structures of the brain include the frontal lobe, the sulci, which are the depressions, the gyri, which are the bumps, parietal lobe, occipital lobe, Wernicke area, temporal lobe, and Broca's area. So if you look at here, what does the frontal lobe do? Well, first of all, the brain is divided into right and left hemispheres. Okay, so here's the frontal lobe, here's the temporal lobe, here's the occipital lobe, and here's the parietal lobe. So the frontal lobe does thought processes, behavior, personality, emotion, some motor control. Broca's area, this is where you express your language. It's on the left side. Here's the temporal lobe, which does hearing, understanding, speech, and language, both sides. Here's the parietal lobe that does body sensations, visual, and spatial perception. Here's the body movement, which is part of the frontal lobe. Occipital lobe does vision, and then you have the Wernicke's area, which is part of the temporal lobe that does language comprehension. So if you speak a second language, your Wernicke's area will be well developed. The cerebrum is the largest section of the brain. Surface nerve cells called cerebral cortex manages speech, vision, smell, movement, hearing, and thought. The cerebellum looks like a little cauliflower, coordinates voluntary movements, maintains balance. So if you have damage to the cerebellum, you can call that cerebellar ataxia. They'll have a shuffling gait. They'll feel like when they walk, you're like, oh my gosh, they're going to fall right over. The thalamus, I like to call that really air traffic control, because at the airport you have a whole bunch of flights coming in and a whole bunch of flights leaving. So the thalamus gets a whole bunch of information, integrates and monitors impulses from the skin and pain. So it's going to give all this sensory information, and then the brain's going to decide what to do with it. So think of the thalamus as air traffic control. Basically, air traffic control monitors all the flights that come in and all the flights that go out. Well, thalamus gets all this information from your body, and then it'll decide what to do with it. The hypothalamus controls the body temperature, sleep, appetite, sexual desire, and emotions. Regulates release of hormones from the pituitary gland and monitors sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. That's a good quiz question, right? So know what the hypothalamus does. The pons, it bridges the cerebrum and the cerebellum with the rest of the brain. It houses nerves for the face and eyes. The midbrain, uppermost portion of the brainstem, contains pathways connecting the cerebrum with lower portions of the brain. The medulla oblongata, I just like saying medulla oblongata. It connects the spinal cord to the brain, nerve tracts from side to side. It regulates blood vessels, heart, and respiration. Here's the spinal cord. It's the column of nervous tissue from the medulla oblongata all the way down to the second lumbar vertebrae. So spinal cord ends at L2. It serves as a pathway for impulses to and from the brain. The inner section of the cross section of the spinal cord is called gray matter. The outer section is called white matter because the white matter is myelinated. And myelin helps, it's like insulation for the nerves. Meninges contain dura mater, a subdural space, arachnoid membrane, subarachnoid space, and pia matter. So those are the layers of the brain, and dura is the outermost and pia is the innermost. So if you heard of a subdural hematoma, you're going to get swelling right underneath the dura right here, which is right here, subdural space. Okay. So again, here's a good visual. Meninges are the three layers of connective tissue membranes that surround the brain and the spinal cord. So if you look at this dura mater means in Latin, tough mother, right? Dura in Spanish, dura, isn't there a song called that? And you've got, so here's your scalp. Here's the cranium, which is the skull. Okay. Here's the subdural space, arachnoid membrane, subarachnoid space, which contains cerebral spinal fluid. So cerebral spinal fluid is basically what your brain sits in. Imagine you in a pool and you're just floating in the pool. Well, that's what your brain is basically just floating in the cerebral spinal fluid. It provides nutrition, picks up all the waste products, and just helps circulate. Okay. And here's the pia mater. All right, so let's get to the actual vocabulary. Here's acetylcholine, an afferent nerve, arachnoid membrane. So acetylcholine is a neurotransmitter, chemical released at the end of nerve cells and carries messages toward the brain and spinal cord. Arachnoid membrane is the middle layer of three membranes that surround the brain and the spinal cord. Astrocyte, autonomic nervous system, axon. Astrocyte is a glial cell that transports water and salts from the capillaries. The autonomic nervous system, nerves that control involuntary body functions of muscles, glands, and internal. Remember, the autonomic nervous system is your fight or flight, or your rest and digest. axon is a microscopic fiber that carries the nerve's impulses along the nerve cell. You have a blood-brain barrier, brainstem, and quada equina. The blood-brain barrier is a protective separation between the blood and brain cells that keeps substances such as anti-cancer drugs from penetrating capillary walls and entering the brain. The anti-cancer drugs are unfortunately too large, so that's why you can't treat brain cancer with chemotherapy. So you have to do surgery to take out parts of the brain. So only small molecules can enter the blood-brain barrier. So narcotics, recreational drugs, alcohol are small molecules. That's why you get drunk or you get a high from those drugs. Advil is too large. That's why when you take Advil, you don't get that high or you don't get those side effects. So it depends on how big the molecules are and can they pass the blood-brain barrier. The brainstem is the posterior portion of the brain that connects the cerebrum with the spinal cord, includes the midbrain, pons, and medulla oblongata. The quada equina, collection of spinal nerves below the end of the spinal cord. Remember, the spinal cord ends at L2. Quada equina kind of looks like a horse's tail. That's the cell body, central nervous system, cerebellum. The cell body is part of the nerve cell that contains the nucleus. The central nervous system is the brain and the spinal cord. And the cerebellum looks like a little cauliflower, posterior part of the brain that coordinates muscle movements and maintains balance. Cerebral cortex, cerebrospinal fluid, and the cerebrum. Cerebral cortex, outer region of the cerebrum, contains sheets of nerve cells, gray matter. Cerebral spinal fluid circulates throughout the brain and spinal cord, picks up waste products, provides nutrition. The cerebrum is the largest part of the brain, responsible for voluntary activity, vision, speech, taste, hearing, thought, and memory. Okay, so you have two cerebral hemispheres. So a lot of these mean the same thing. You're like cerebrum, cerebellar is different. Okay, so don't get cerebellum and cerebellar confused with cerebrum or cerebral. Cranial nerves, dendrite, and dura mater. So cranial nerves, there's 12 pairs. They're not part of the central nervous system, they're part of the peripheral nervous system. They carry message to and from the brain with regard to the neck and head, except for the vagus nerve. Dendrites are a microscopic branching fiber of a nerve, the first part to receive the nerve impulse. Dura mater means, again, tough mother, the thick outermost layer of the meninges surrounding and protecting the brain and spinal cord. Efferent means efferent nerve, epidendal, and ganglion. Efferent carries messages away from the brain and spinal cord. That's motor nerve. And afferent are carrying messages to the brain, and they're sensory. So A is sensory, E is motor. Ependymal cell, glial cells that lines the membranes within the brain and spinal cord, helps form cerebrospinal fluid. A ganglion is plural collection of nerve cell bodies in the peripheral nervous system. So example would be, let's say you touch a hot stove. Well, afferent nerves would say that are sensory will send that information to your brain, and your brain will say, oh, well, you better remove that hand. So then efferent nerves will go carry the message away from your brain to your hand and say, well, you better take that hand off, and that's a motor nerve there. So hopefully that makes sense, afferent versus efferent.